Welcome to Holistic Health and Healing, a show offering solutions for the body, being, and beyond. In each episode, we discuss topics that empower you to take a holistic approach to step into your unique voice in this world. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. K and Hank Setala, the Sonic Shaman.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Holistic Health and Healing live stream and podcast. We have an amazing topic today, not just how to restore your energy, but perhaps how to go about your day-to-day life so you're never depleted in the first place.
Oh, this is a juicy one. I think there's a lot. This downloaded to me last night, and I was like, what are we going to talk about today? Oh, man. And all of a sudden, this came through. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we're going to have like Positox on. We had a guest lined up, but they had to reschedule till later in August. So at the last second, we're like, what are we going to talk about? And this is like a common theme because so many people, and here's really the difference. If life is happening to you, you get depleted. If life is happening through you, you never do. So the question is, if you are depleted, how do we fill you up? And then how going forward do you get to the point where you never get depleted in the first place? So it's really kind of a two-part thing.
Lots of things here, and we'll try to do a little physical, a little emotional, mental, because they all play a role, every single part of this. So if you're eating a lot of donuts, don't expect to feel really energetic the next day. Okay, guys, I'm just going to be honest. But then there's all the emotional things. So Hank was about to say something, and I cut him off.
No, I was just going to bring up Hazel's joining us, saying perfect topic. We're so glad that you're joining us for it. And truly, like it is a congruency thing. Like Dr. K is hitting it right on the head because we are multifaceted beings. You're not just a being. You're not just a body. There's all these different levels. In metaphysics, there's like 7 planes of reality. You exist on all those planes at the same time. So the degree that you can really be clear in each one of those, it adds like this ease to everything that shows up and how you can express your beingness into the world.
Yeah. So where do we want to start? Do we want to start on the physical part? Do we want to start on the emotional part?
I say let's start with the emotional part, then let's go to the physical part, and then let's do like the stuff beyond that.
Good. So we'll cover a handful of things that can make you feel depleted. And they're tricky things you probably haven't even thought of. The first one that comes to mind really is open loops. So how many things do you start projects and you don't finish? Because that actually...
She's saying this one just for me.
No, it's just, I was trying to think of all the tips because I learned this a while ago. When you start things, but it's unfinished. So say you start remodeling your kitchen and it's just kind of sitting there. And you just decided, I'll do tomorrow. But it's sitting there. That's actually an energetic, what I call, I didn't coin the term, one of my mentors did, an open loop. So it's an energy that's out there and it's opened and it's still running. So you either decide I'm finishing this today or within this week, make it a timeline, finish the project, whatever it is, or conversation or whatever that's out there that has not been completed. So look at all the spaces in your life where you've kind of started a project or there's somebody you need to talk to that, you didn't finish, or it's hemming and hawing and you kind of got to handle a situation. These will deplete you energetically because it starts doing stuff in the mind. It just exudes energy, and I know we don't often see this, but this is what starts to happen in the body. So that's one way. The other thing that's coming to mind is over giving. If you have, a sick mother-in-law, a husband that's pulling at you, your job, all these things are pulling out energetically, and you tend to say yes too many times, you're going to get exhausted. You're giving too much of your energy, but you're not receiving anything. And so it becomes this loop where there's not an equilibrium of balance, where you're giving too much of yourself. You're saying, yes, I'll be the chaperone to this, kids thing that I got to go to. Yes, I'll bake cookies for this fundraiser. Yet when you yourself are not being taken care of, there's no self-care for yourself. And then you start feeling depleted. So watch all the places that learn to say no. Just learn to say no to certain things, because you will start getting depleted in yourself when you're giving too much, and then you'll start breaking down, and this becomes a physical thing. And then don't be shocked if your shoulders start hurting, if you start developing colds, if you start feeling, arthritic things going on. it's an energy, we are an energy body. So there's stuff that's going on inside. And when you're giving too much of yourself, then you're going to start not feeling so great over a period of time. So pull yourself back in, learn to say no a little more often. Or if you can't do it, say, hey, I know somebody that can, and refer them to somebody else if you can't do it. Always saying yes, yes, yes to everything and feeling like you need to give without a balance of receiving is going to deplete you as well. I don't know if you want to chime in with anything, Hank.
Well, Shaman doesn't call this. Well, I hear my echo in the background. Oh no. Let's see. I'm just muting you for a second so the background of my echo isn't there. I was going to say that in shamanism, we have this idea, this word called Aini, which means divine reciprocity. And it's all about being in the flow. And a great example of this is our creationship. Notice I'm not saying relationship with the trees. They give off oxygen. We give off carbon dioxide. There is this energy exchange that is like the natural flow between the two aspects of divinity. And so with everything in your life, if you can be in the space of how can I be in flow with versus what can I do for, what could they do for me? Like one, there's like a one-way street energy, and the other is this divine reciprocity where it's going to be balanced. And I also put up on the banner there, self first versus selfish, because if you can be self first and take care of you, there's way more contribution you could be to others than if you're always giving, never taking time for yourself. That's where you do get depleted, because you aren't allowing yourself to be nurtured for, cared for, to have that energy in order to be able to offer a contribution.
Yeah, and you know what, Hank? I may need to just grab my earphones. That may be why. I don't know if that's a contributing factor to why.
Oh, for sure, if you don't have earphones, because it's carrying my voice in the background.
Talk for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay, so, oops, wrong way. We wanted to do this way. So while we wait for Dr. K to go get her earphones, the other thing that comes to mind with the open loops is it's really like fragmenting like your attention, and energy flows where your attention goes. So if you have like these open loops, these different projects that you're involved with that aren't really going anywhere, the energy's still there. And there's a part of you that is alive in each one of those situations or circumstances. So even if you just choose that you're not going to do it anymore, just the ability to close down that, say, yep, this isn't going to happen, we're closing the door on this, then you can start to kind of bring yourself back together where you can be way more congruent as a body and a being and actually choose actions that are going to create more. And it looks like Dr. K is just about back. So we'll go ahead and exit solo layout, unmute Dr. K. Okay. Welcome back. And we have...
I forgot.
Yeah, Doug says, good morning, guys. Wish I could still watch you live. You're watching live now, Doug? No, I know. You probably can't watch the whole thing. Oh, and a reminder for everyone, too, if you have particular questions or things coming up in your world around this, like, let us know. And I don't know if you could hear me with the two things that I offered, just basically to not fragment yourself with those open loops. When you close the door, you can be more congruent with the things that can create contribution. And that's the biggest thing. Just ask the question when you're going to be looking to get into something. Ask the question, will this create more towards me being me or not? Because everything that we choose ought to be a contribution as to how we are looking to show up in this world. And if it is not going to be, maybe that's something that you don't really need to add to your plate, because it's going to take away from who you are versus adding to who you are. So being the question is paramountly important when it comes to these energy loops and fragmentation and really choosing what you're going to add into your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Too many people, I've done this and I feel it when I do it. I'm like, I really don't want to do this, but I'm saying yes out of guilt. So I've done this. I'm better at it now because I catch myself and I'm like, okay, is this, do I really, if you don't feel that you want to do, like, if you're like, oh, I really don't want to do this. Yeah, sure, I'll do it. If you're not feeling it, don't do it. Don't donate to some place if you don't want to donate. Energetically, right. It's just not a clean thing. So yeah, check that out. If you really want to do something, then do it. If you really truly from your heart want to do something, fine. But also look at yourself, because it's like, boy, I'm really tired. I really could use a rest today and just, sitting down and nurturing myself. But out of whatever reason you feel you need to be, even though you want to, but look at the little stuff that's going on in your head. Like, I really would like to help, but I'm really kind of tired. Nurture yourself first. It's okay to say no. It's okay. And if the other person gets mad, it's not your responsibility.
And say no, and don't, like, because if someone says, like, you ask someone to do something, well, I'll try to do that, that's already them just being wishy-washy about the no, and you're leaving this open door, and even that is kind of like an open loop. So let your yes be yes and your no be no, and don't dance around something that you don't want to do because you don't feel empowered to say no. And if you don't feel empowered to say no, well, what is that about? And then start asking the questions like, where did I decide that I'm not able to say no, or I can't honor myself? Where were you taught to put others first? And I know that's common with parents, like, think of others before yourself, but truly as an infinite being self first, it's like the airplane. You got to take care of yourself before you can do things for others. So be the best you can be, and then choose the things that are going to create the greatest possibilities for you and for the world.
Absolutely. It's a very attractive energy too. So don't be a doormat. Really, don't be a doormat. The other thing that comes to mind is people will drain you. And we've all been around those people that just like dump I call it emotional vomit, but they dump all over you, and you're like, and then you leave, and you leave the dinner or lunch or whatever conversation you had with them, and you're like, man, I feel really tired. They've drained you. Energy goes from high to low. So if you vibrate at a higher frequency and you're bubbly and happy, and then you're around somebody who is really depressed and having a really tough time and just doesn't understand this kind of energy thing, and they just kind of lay into you because you're, oh, this person's happy and bubbly. It's like this thing that happens, and they just, you haven't had those people that just like start talking to you about their whole life problem, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And when that happens, the key for it not to deplete you. So you, like, if it happens, take care of yourself and renew your energy, and we'll give some tools for that in a bit. Yeah. But to prevent it from happening in the first place, if you can listen with just the ear of allowance, then it won't impact you. Because the thing that drains us is when we align and agree with or resist and react to the story that's being told. And you are not doing anybody a service to hear their story and going, oh, poor you, because you're like cementing another layer of victimization. They're looking for validation of their trauma and their victimization and things like that. But if you can listen in allowance and be in the space of interesting point of view, you can just hold the space. You're not aligning and agreeing with, you're not resisting, reacting to, say, well, you need to suck it up and, do change things. Like, that might be well intended, but if you can just be the space of allowance, it will allow them to choose something different, because they're not getting polarized either way with how you're going to respond to them. And that is going to be a much more empowering situation for everybody involved. And it takes practice to get there. Mm-hmm. But if you can start just using that tool, interesting point of view, they have that point of view. Interesting point of view, I have that point of view. Interesting point of view, I had that point of view about their point of view. All that is tools to start taking the charge off of the judgment that starts to lock all of us into polarity. And that's in polarity is where you get depleted. In monality, you don't ever get depleted. So it's like, how could you be in the world but not of it with all the interactions around you?
And I feel the chills coming through that, because I'm very aware of that right now. There are moments where, because I'm so empathic and I always want to help everybody, but I have to realize sometimes I just have to hold the space. It's not my responsibility to help this person all the time. Holding the space for them is probably one of the biggest gifts you can do. If your heart feels like it's starting to get tugged, or your throat, and you're like, oh, and you're thinking this person's talking, and you're thinking in your head like, oh my gosh, what could I do to help them? You're getting entangled in their energy. Help if you'd like to help coming from a different grounded space. But if you feel a pull to oh my God, this is terrible. You'll start feeling your energy leaking out of your system. It's just, you'll feel yourself just start kind of doing this thing, like you start sinking. So that's how you know you're not holding the space for them. You're not just listening, kind of like, okay, oh wow, yeah, I hear you. Well, versus getting entangled in all their stuff. And we get entangled in other people's stuff all the time.
Truly. So. And truly, like, and I want to reframe the word help a little bit, because I know, like, we use this in the, how do I want to say this? I would frame it instead of, do I have a role in this person's play? If I look at all of life kind of like the movie or the show Into the Woods, it's all the fairy tales happening at the same time in the same forest, interacting with each other. So each person is kind of acting out their role that they're coming to play. And do they really need help acting that role? No, they're right where they're at. But do you have a role in their play? What contribution could you be? Because in Access, they like teach that help is like, it could lead to a polarization, because as an infinite being, is there any help ever required? Because then there's like a judgment of superiority possibly. So I'm throwing that out there. I know that's not the energy that you were holding when you used the word help, but I wanted to throw that out for other people to consider. Like, if you have compassion for somebody, is that judgment light? If you have empathy for somebody, is that judgment light? If you feel like you need to help somebody, is that judgment light because, oh, I have all this and they don't, so I'm going to help them because they have less? There's all these things that are polarity locks. So allowance is the key, and the space, like you said, like the greatest thing you can do is just hold the space, because when you don't have that, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction polarity thing going on. People can just start to choose differently.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So one of the biggest energy drainers are people. And this this is at work. I'm sure you feel it at work. Like when I was still working at my other office, I would see, there's days I wouldn't see that many people. Maybe I'd see 10, 15 people. I was exhausted by the end of the night, because by the time I come home and I'm like, I was busy, but not, nothing crazy. But I would come home tired a lot. It's the energy of the room. It's the energy of the people you're around. When you're around a lot of people that are sick, have a lot of problems, we have this exchange that starts happening. And there's actually hooks, that energetic cords that start happening between people. And you don't even realize this is happening. People hook into you. And I'm sure you felt this. It's like, they lay in, or they want something from you. They're putting a hook into you. It's an energetic hook. You can't see it, but it's there, and it starts to like leak energy out of your system. So what I do is I cut the cords after each client, after each healing I do. After I started doing that, and you'll start to feel less depleted, because you're cutting those hooks of the energy drains that people are putting into you. That's one of the biggest energy drainers around. I think getting into certain spaces, and businesses hold an energy too. Have you ever walked into a space and you're like, I don't know, this just doesn't feel so great? Or you've walked into a space and you're like, boy, this space is kind of light. It's fun in here. I think I want to hang out here. That's another place where you will start, if you're sensitive enough, you'll start to feel drained. I felt that at multiple places, and I didn't even realize it was happening until I left that space, and I was like, ooh, yeah, that was not fun in there. So be aware of those things. It's gaining awareness. That's another place you're going to get really drained.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Like, sometimes it's a place, and it does not necessarily people that you intentionally interact with, like a clerk at a grocery store. We're infinite beings, and as empaths, you might be aware of your next door neighbor. You might be aware of all the people in the grocery store. And how many times might you have an awareness and you have a judgment about it? That's what creates the hook, is the empath's bleeding heart. You're aware of something and go, oh, that's so terrible. Hook. And it might be from somebody that you didn't even personally interact with. So like just a daily practice throughout the day, if you can, of making sure that you are clearing and cutting those things and asking the question, everything that allowed that, destroyed and created. So every place where you have a judgment that allowed the hook to happen, you're actually starting to get to the core and reducing those, because as you reduce those, there'll be less and less hooks. Your bubble, your aura will become like Teflon. Shit hits, but it doesn't stick. And that's after you get rid of the things that would allow those hooks to happen in the first place. Then it's just like splat and move on. And it won't be as much day-to-day maintenance when you can be in that space.
Yeah, I do a cord cutting technique. If anybody wants that, please feel free to reach out. I can send you a little video on things that I do, and to get those two things with grounding, to get back into your body, so that you're not, because when you're not in your body, you kind of can get depleted too. You're out here like la 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 land. You're not in your body, so you don't hold that energy well. So that's one of the other things that I do. There was another thought, and it just went poof.
But on the body thing, like I thought I was grounded and in my body. No. I worked with Dr. K yesterday, and I had a realization of like, I'm still like very much like out there. And when you can actually be fully present, you have such a greater capacity to actualize and manifest. And I find that for myself, one of the biggest things has been for feeling okay in the body is this whole cellular memory idea. Like, where have you stored physically traumas, whether they were yourself or your awarenesses of others, and starting to get rid of that. So like clearing work, going to a healer, anything like that, to start flushing that out. If you are one of those space cadets like me, you can actually start to feel more comfortable being in the body. And when you are fully present, body, being, and beyond, you can be an actualization juggernaut in terms of creating the life and the things that you desire in this life. But how many of us, and it's a lot of us, are only like 10% in the body or something like that. And so you're literally firing not even on one cylinder with what you could be creating in this world. So just get the sense of, what if you were 100% congruent right now? What would your life look like?
Yeah, when you practice this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's an exciting concept though. Like, just really get the energy, ask the question, what would it feel like if I was 100% congruent all the time? And just get a sense of the energy. And then every day just ask, universe, I'll have that, please. What would it take? And you just start this good, orderly direction to achieve that congruency. And then it's like game on with what you can create.
Totally. And I've gotten so aware now. I know when I'm not fully grounded. There was a time in what comes to mind when I was still at Premier, and I walk in and there's like a zillion patients, and my assistant comes into the office. She's like, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so's out there, and I was so present. I would just remember that, just being so in my body. I was like, it's okay, it's fine. Do this first, do that first. You can discern. And you get answers, and you just handle situations really, really well when you're grounded. So I know when I'm not grounded. I know when I'm half grounded. I know when I'm not grounded at all. And I get myself there, because you do get sick and you do get way more tired when you're not in your body. And I know that sounds tricky. Play with it. We talked about this last week. If you feel like you don't know where your keys are, I just put this object somewhere, I don't know where it is. You're not in your body. If you're driving and you're thinking about where you got to take the kids, you got a 6 o'clock appointment, you got to meet your parents-in-law at 5, you're not in your body. This is where, you start leak. These are little energy leaks out of your system. And I know that sounds silly, but this is why at the end of the day, you're like, man, I'm whooped. And you're like, but I really didn't do that much today. These are little energy leaks that over time will start creating physical symptoms.
Yeah, I worked with I forget about it. It was like maybe 2 years ago. I had somebody in my industry who does like readings professionally, and they had gone under a health crisis. And speaking to them and calling in like an illumination to illuminate what was going on, I just saw like tens of thousands of these little cords. And it was like every person she had ever done a reading for was like all these little connections, and this like all slow little trickle charges out. And it's like we cleared all that, and she recovered really quickly. But like all these little things add up, and if there's no maintenance involved and you're not actively looking at it, it's like, well, a 1% drain isn't so bad, but when they start adding up, now 80% going somewhere else. And there's a quick fix for this too, though. It's called energy flows. So if people are pulling on your energy and you have a hard time cutting those cords, if you can tap into the energy instead of using your energy, let them have that. There's an infinite amount of energy. Now, that does not fix the problem with the cords being there, but in the short term, that is a way to flow the energy out and give them all that they need without it depleting you. And that is another thing that you can practice. And something that might be easier for some people, and cutting cords might be easier for some people. Doing both might be a contribution, but that's just another way you might be able to kind of shift. And that's important too. If you could be operating all the time with the energy instead of your energy, it is a whole different experience. And that is where life happens through you instead of to you.
Exactly. Yeah. Another thing that I've recently learned, and if somebody wants this done, please reach out. I can do a shield protector on people now. So it's kind of, I know this sounds weird, but I create a shield around you so things start to bounce off. And so you don't kind of get depleted from a lot of these people that start really putting hooks into you, or maybe don't have such great feelings towards you. And they throw out what I call daggers, invisible daggers. And that starts to kind of make you not feel so good. It lasts about 7 days. We may need to refresh it. We can put this around the home. We can put it on a car. We can put it around your animals. What a protector kind of bubble, so to speak. And it does work really well.
It works. And I would say, though, that is like something to do while you're learning the other techniques, because there's this weird universal law that says what you resist persists.
Yeah, that too.
And when it comes to shielding, I love Ryan Dean has this great example in his empathic empowerment training. He would say that when you are blindsided by a situation, like say there's a fire, you get a blanket, you put water on it, you put it around yourself, you get out of the building. Do you always wear the blanket? No. So like shielding is a great tool in the moment when you need it and things like that. But if it's used as the only line of defense, energy flows where attention goes. You're focusing on all the stuff that you don't want to show up, and the universe will say, hey, you want more of that stuff? Here you go. And so it's like a short-term thing, but then do these other tools that are going to make it so you don't need the shield.
Those are quick things you can do. Hank has his thing. I do my thing. Like I said, if somebody is interested in that, it's basically pulling out cords and cutting them after every conversation, after any thought that you have that you're hooking yourself with negative stuff, after people, situations. I use it all the time. So that's something easy to do. What else energetically?
Well, a tool for cutting cords. Dr. K has amazing techniques for cords. The one that we do in the Paco tradition of Peru, we call it popping the pop bow. And you do it by doing 3 deep breaths. And with each breath, you're pulling energy in from all around you. You're pulling energy from within you. And you're expanding your energy bubble to the point where on the 3rd breath, it pops like a balloon. Only for a second. The aura, the pop bow reforms immediately. But in that moment of popping, all the connections to the bubble go. And you have a moment where it's just you, yourself, and your soul. And that is a cool technique. They do it once a year. Well, traditionally, like once a year on August 1st, it's like Pachamama Day. And it's like the day everybody pops the pop bow, cutting all the cords of energy so you can kind of start the year new or whatnot. But that's like, if you're liking breath work and you can do good visualizations, that is a cool technique for some people.
Yeah.
It can be scary though.
Why? That's scary?
Because like popping your bubble, it's like, no, where am I? No, but it forms like back right away.
Breath work is another thing. Thanks. I meant to talk about that. Breath work is a way to restore your energy as well. There's something that happens inside you when you do a certain technique. I'm sure Hank has his. I have one that I use. I take 6. You put your tongue to the roof of the mouth because you want to close that meridian so the energy can run through. Put your tongue to the roof of the mouth. You take 6 slow breaths in. You hold at the top for 3, and then 6 slow breaths out and hold at the bottom for 3, and do probably about 3 to 7 cycles of that. That actually starts to generate more energy within your system. It kind of gets the chakras moving, kind of gets things going, and brings you back to front and center. So that's another way to, that's from my teachings and the things that I study. That's one way we regenerate some energy. So that's another energy technique.
And another great thing to do would be just with the intention, using one hand. And let me create context around this. In South America, they have this saying that the children of the North walk around with leaking navels. One of the first things they do with children is they would do a ceremony, 1 for a soul retrieval for being cut from the mother, and 2 to regulate at the navel. They have this thing called a Cusco Nawi, which is like your where you bring in and express energy out of your field, and you're like wide open when you're born, and they close it down. And one of the reasons we have so many empaths and steroids is we're born here. There's no knowledge that is commonplace in the medical field about, hey, there's this energy center we should regulate for this kid. So they're not aware of everything and going on in the hospital and the world and all this stuff. So like if you're a wide open empath, you're not closing this eye, but think of it like a camera lens, how it can open and close, or how your pupil dilates. All you're doing is you're kind of reducing the funnel of the information it's bringing in to regulate it down. Never cut yourself off, of course. You don't want to be closed off from the world, but you can regulate that. So if you are very overwhelmed, just reduce that funnel a little bit, and you can have a lot less information coming, especially while you develop these techniques to not be in judgment, interesting point of view, to cut the cords, like with Dr. K, to do the breathing exercises. It can really be a huge benefit to regulate that.
Yeah, those are ways of pulling your energy back in if you feel like kind of sneaking out. The other thing you can do, and they do this, I'm trained in Diksha too. I totally forgot to mention. Have you heard of Diksha?
I have not.
It's kind of like Reiki for the mind. I haven't done a lot of it since I've gone on to the other healing technologies because those are a little more vast. But the other thing that we did was you lay down on the ground, and this is part of a yogi technique too, where you just lay down on the ground flat on your back. And you can regenerate energy that way, just by laying flat on your back, doing some breathing for 5 minutes or so. And that's another way to regenerate energy. Absolutely. And to come into great resonance with Pachamama, Mother Earth, too. Everybody should
like whatever you want to do to connect to the earth, hug a tree, lay on the ground, like that is such a huge contribution. Because I think there's even studies that if you're in nature for even like a short period of time, I forget if it's like 5 or 15 minutes, like it normalizes so many things in how the body operates. So like nature is like paramount for keeping yourself in a space where you can be in that space of allowance and possibility.
Excellent. Yeah, nature's excellent. Go hug a tree. Seriously, that will help you a ton. I know you look weird, but it will help a ton. That's another great energy regenerator. So,
and anybody who thinks you look weird, they're not your friends anyway. You want people who look at you like, oh, that's so cool, and they want to lay down too. Hang out with those people.
Exactly. Why hang out with the norm?
There is no normal, Dr.
There is no norm.
Well, I take it back. There's one normal person in all the world. And because they're normal, I don't know. Because since there's only one normal person, everybody thinks that person's crazy. So there's no way to tell who the normal person is.
Right. There is no normal. But we try to create normal, so to speak. But okay, so we'll move on. I guess those are some big things. So breathing, learn to say no a bit more, cut your cords, or do whatever, popping of the bubble technique that Hank talked about. Self-care, pulling your energy back in, laying on the ground, being in nature. Those are some really important things. Exercise actually can generate more energy because sitting on your chair creates stagnation. So a lot of jobs that we have where we just sit in our chair all day long and we don't move. Get up every 45 minutes and take a quick little walk. A body is meant to be in motion. Energy needs to be in motion. If you sit for too long, things it's like sediment. It just kind of becomes thick and heavy and you kind of just, sink. You start sinking and everything sinks with you. So there's a reason why, when you have arthritis, they just tell you to keep moving. There's a reason for that. It's they don't understand really, but medicine doesn't quite get it when they tell you that, but it's an energy thing. The body needs to keep moving because to heal, the energy needs to keep spinning and moving. So exercise is great. Whatever you can do, a 10-minute walk, get to the gym. It also, when you have a lot of negative energy, it pulls it to the surface so it can kind of fall off or excrete a little bit better. And this is why they say when you have anxiety or depression, do exercise because it helps a ton. There's a reason. There's an energetic reason for that. It pulls things to the surface so it can expel, so it's not so deep inside your system.
And I'm going to look up this video. I would encourage everybody watching today. We had Dr. Ravi on, and it was all about the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system, it's kind of like this bridging to the energy centers. And like having a good lymphatic is a great way to have the energies can be in constant flow. And I believe we went over some things and things to help with that. So I'm going to post a link to that video. I think it would be a huge contribution for everybody to keep that in mind because it's really kind of an extension or where the energy centers bridge to the body. And it's, I think, it's not focused on as much as it probably ought to be. And you can do a lot of things yourself. I think they call it dry brushing. You can use an osteophonic tuning fork and it stimulates meridian flow and all that because it is the physical body, but that constant motion, it's helping all the energy to continue to moving. And it's like super important. So I'm going to look up that video while you say whatever the next inspiration is.
Yeah. Create a routine. Go to bed and wake up at a certain time. Start creating routines because when you have a lot of chaos in your life and everything's all over the place, you'll start depleting energy that way too. So make it a point to get up at 7 a.m. or 7:30, whatever time you want to choose, and go to bed around the same time. I know it's crazy, but when you're spinning your body round and around with different, ways and not creating kind of a routine, that can leak your energy as well. So that's a really thing. Create routines around your life. I know when I go like out of town somewhere and I'm out of my routine, I am just like, I feel off. Maybe it's not so much a huge energy deplete, but I just feel off. So do your best to create some routines. When you wake up first thing in the morning, I tell all of my patients to have a glass of water. You have been dehydrated for a very long time. Your nerves need the water. So I squeeze a half of an organic lemon in probably about 6 to 8 ounce glass of water. Don't chug it down, kind of sip it down, not not over an hour, but just sip it, don't chug the whole thing, and restore your hydration. Because what people do is they wake up and they have coffee first thing. That's a diuretic. It will dehydrate you even more. So you will feel depleted when that happens. So that's another thing I would recommend, is to get up and have a glass of water with lemon first thing in the morning, so that you rehydrate yourself and everything kind of wakes up.
Yeah, and also get in tune with the body. I just posted the link for Dr. Ravi on my other YouTube channel, the Sonic Shaman. I have like this energy process called activating the seat of the soul, and it helps the body and the being to come into congruency, because the body itself has a consciousness. And if you can start asking the body, hey body, what would be a contribution to you? Like this morning, I did a probiotic first thing with water. I don't do it every morning, but today that felt light, so I did that, and then I had another glass of water, and then I made my coffee or whatever. So like if you can start tuning into what the body truly would benefit from, that you can have a lot more ease. And I also found, like, when I end up doing a diet change, and I use that word loosely, I don't like the word diet, but when I'm changing up like what I'm putting into the body, if I've asked the body, it's really easy. Like I went plant-based overnight, and then I cut out gluten completely like 3 weeks ago, because it was going to be a contribution to the body, but I've had no hard time with it. Where some people, they're trying to force a change by imposing a choice on the body, and the body's not on board. Like, what would it be like if the body could be part of that conversation and know what's going on and have input as to the choices that you're making?
Yeah, part of a routine. Like I know if I wake up too late or something happens and I'm half asleep and I didn't you just feel tired, because I start a whole routine with the glass of water, waking up at the same time, doing at least 5 to 10 minutes, if not more, of starting my day with, usually more, of just starting my day with something. I ground, I cut cords, I do a meditation if I have time enough to do that. If not a meditation, I have certain things that I say and do every single morning. I write my gratitude list every single morning. So you start that engine running and you set your day, versus you're laying in bed and you're like, oh crap, there's the alarm. Oh crap, I got to get up. And then you're all chaotic and you're already leaking out energy. So getting yourself back in your body after a night's sleep, starting your morning with a routine, even if you can only sit down for 5 minutes versus 15, just to lock yourself into the system, and starting your day that way and ending your day a certain way. That's kind of how I do it. And it works really well. And when something throws me off and I can't do that, yeah, I definitely feel it. So that's something else that can be done.
Right. And if you're someone like me, I never end up going to bed at the same time. But what I'm mindful of is I know my sleep cycle is about 90-ish minutes. Well, actually, the last 3 weeks, I've been waking up all crazy times for reasons. But normal schedules, like you have a sleep cycle, and most people's is around 90 minutes. And if you can at least get your sleep to be in one of those increments, you'll wake up completely refreshed and things. But if you're like waking up halfway through a sleep cycle, then you can actually feel more drained than if you've completed a sleep cycle. So kind of having a little awareness around that if you're going to bed later than usual, maybe staying up an extra 15, 20 minutes to hit that sleep cycle increment would be a contribution to you, versus just falling asleep now. So that's something else to think about.
Yeah, we had a link for that. We talked about sleep and insomnia way, way, way back. And I think we posted a link on that. There's, I don't know if it's an app, but you can Google it. Google like sleep cycle, and there's various little sites you can go on that it will tell you, like, go to bed at 11:30 and wake up at 7:30. Because if you wake up at 6:45 or 6:50, you kind of feel off and you feel tired. You have it, like Hank said, that is a point. You'll feel more tired because you fell out of that cycle. That does make a difference. That's happened to me numerous occasions.
Yeah, and then also if you're not hitting the right brain waves, because like it's really important to get into theta when you are sleeping, and theta is where your brain will process short-term to long-term memory. So like if you think of like moms and things like that, they say, oh, they have mom brain or they have pregnancy brain. It has nothing to do with the pregnancy. It has to do that their sleep cycle is totally foobarred, and they're not actually getting into the correct brain frequencies for the memory retention. That's why they don't remember anything. So like if you're waking up and you have headaches, or if you have really hard time remembering short-term things, it might be something to look at. Well, am I getting to the brain waves that I need to? And if you're not, there's like things with binaural beats where it's like you would wear headphones at night, and there's like tracks that will intentionally put frequencies to either side of the ear to help the brain go through the different stages of like alpha, beta, theta, delta, and all that, to help you go on the correct sleep cycle. So that's something else, because sleeping is one thing, but are you getting what you need out of the sleep? And that can be a huge contribution as well.
The other thing that just pops up is creating our own chaos. So sometimes we make ourselves tired because it's a way of checking out. I've done this. It's like it happens almost every time I have to give a big lecture. I drive and I'm like, oh man, I'm just so tired. That's the brain pulling out and the ego pulling me back, because it's like, you're about to do something big and it's scary. No, let's not go there. So monitor where you start to feel tired when you're about to embark on something big that's scary, whether that be a new job or a lecture or a performance of some sort or a conversation that you have to have. Notice how the body just goes, I'm really tired, and the ego wants to just, let's go take a nap when you're about to do something big.
And if it is really random, then the question to ask is, well, is this even mine? Or are you such an aware, infinite being that you're aware of 3 doors down, somebody that's just like, oh, I'm so tired, I have to take a nap, and it's not even yours. And so like there's something to be said for that too. And I'm also curious, because I know something I'm personally working on is cellular memory. Like in the places where the body has all this stuff that's been stored from childhood, what are your go-to tips and tricks for starting to process that to create more space for you to be fully in the body? Because that's been my personal vendetta. At least I've discovered this in the last 3 weeks about me, that there's all kinds of stuff in the body that's gunking it up that makes it uncomfortably fully in the body, and to start getting rid of that.
Processing past traumas and things, and they don't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be like a sexual abuse thing. It can be like a divorce that was just really difficult. It can be something as simple as, my parents forgot to pick me up from school and you're freaked out. Little things like that just left this thing inside you.
Funny you should mention that one thing. I was raised Lutheran, and there's this one thing on Good Friday where everybody leaves the church in silence, right? And my dad thought that my mom had me, and my mom thought my dad had me because they drove separately, and they both leave, and I'm there all by myself. And I forget how old I was, but it's like I'm left at church and both my parents forgot me. But something like that's seemingly innocent and truly just an oversight could have a huge cellular memory effect. And not only that, what was I aware of all the people who were in judgment about my parents leaving me? And what screwed me more, the fact that they left, or all the judgments about, wow, so much sucky parents are these people that they just forget their kid. I don't know that they really thought that, but stuff like that. It's not just the event. It's what were you aware of from other people who are aware of the event that stuck you with a point of view about the experience that really had nothing to do with how you experienced it.
Yeah, you might be okay. A lot of times when a child pokes their finger and they're bleeding and they're just looking at it, and all of a sudden the parent goes, oh my God, you're bleeding. And then all of a sudden the kid starts crying when it wasn't crying at first. And that creates a cellular trauma. And sometimes it's simple and it's, little stuff like that, but it created an imprint that you put in the file cabinet, and then it pops out every now and then when you're bleeding, it's like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. So there's a way to pull up all these things. And when there's been a lot of trauma in life, not just these little things, but a lot of stuff, that takes a lot of work of bringing those. What I do is work with bringing those things to awareness, every single one of those things, till we can pop them enough. But I got to bring the person back in the body, because a lot of times when we pull these things up, the person wants to pop out and they yawn, or they got to go use the bathroom, or, oh, look, Dr. K, there's ants on the floor. They'll try to deflect so we don't deal with it, because it's painful. And we really then need to get the person back in the body, have them drink some water, and run a process to get those things out. And if you've had a lot of traumas, that can take time. It's not an overnight process.
Yeah, and just the willingness to go there, the ability to be rigorously honest with oneself is really, and it might be very uncomfortable, but there's people to support that kind of process. Like Dr. K has an amazing thing called the Prometheus process, which I got to experience firsthand for my own stuff yesterday. We did it on air, probably about a year ago at this point. And it was cool. We kind of touched on it, but I actually was going through some things, and she was tenacious. It was great. Like this guy going through this, and it started for people who don't know what it is, it was like one theme of energy, and you repeat a word over and over again. And when you start getting into it like a mantra, all of a sudden, like these little flips of memories come up, and it's like, okay, well, here's this, and then it keeps going back further and further until you get to what's potentially the original wound. And when you get to that, it's like everything that was holding everything that was above that together just goes poof. It's like the clearing statement from Access, except it's
just a different way, way of getting to stuff. But we start sometimes with something very simple, because when somebody comes in and we don't know what it is, or they're not ready to face it, we start with something simple like, I just feel sad. And then all these memories start popping up. Oh, I felt sad when this happened. And then all of a sudden we get to the bottom. Some people get there much faster, but it's like, oh man, it's like when my mom left me at church, we get to the bottom of those things.
And the awareness that it could be pre-verbal, because a lot of the stuff that I'm personally going through, it's like this happened way before I had any memories at all, or even like childhood, like stuff that there's no way that I could physically remember things, but like I know there's an energy around it. So like, what would it take for you to be just open to? I don't have to relive it. All I need to do is have the awareness that, hey, there was something here that had this theme, and the willingness to take that energy, throw it in this little box that you use in the Prometheus process, and get rid of it. Or with Access, pot and pocket, or with shamanism, it's the disc of memory and the disc of transformation. It's all the same thing, different tools to do it, of taking the memory itself, taking the charge off of it. Because what has happened, that's just what is in the ever-present moment of now. The way that we interrelate with it energetically is what shifts. And all that could be as simple as shifting a point of view. And it's that easy, but we want to make it much harder, right? Because we want to give value to our story. But if you don't value the story, and it's just a story, you can change the charge on it so much easier.
You have to be willing to let go of the story. You have to be willing to let go of the place that you're in, because the story always gives us something. Sometimes it puts us in victimhood. We just like to be the victim, because if we're the victim, then poor Sarah. We're gonna be gentle on her. We won't ask her to do this, or we're just gonna give her a lot of attention, a lot of love. And once we pop that, you might not be getting that anymore. So it's these little quirky little things that start happening that are ridiculous, but they keep you locked up. Yep. So we got on a tangent there. And I'll be getting some extra training too.
It's a good tangent though. And for everybody, if you are relating to the story, what would it take for you to go from getting attention because of your story and what has happened to you, and instead get the attention in this world for stepping into who you truly came to be and offering your medicine gift to this world? Because what feels like it creates more possibility? Like, and truly like start focusing on that. Energy flows where the attention goes. Do the work, but it's kind of twofold. Like, do the work that's holding you back, but also start being aware of what could you be choosing in this world that's going to allow you to express more of you with ease. I always like throwing with ease in there.
With ease, always with ease and grace. The other thing that just popped up is comparison to others. That will deplete you as well. When you're trying to do something in life, you're trying to run a business, you will get into an energetic mental drain trying to compare yourself to others. I'm guilty of this. I will just admit it. I'm like, man, they have a really nice website. I always say, like, Hank gives me imposter syndrome, because it's like, there's all this cool stuff and I don't know how to do it. So it's like when we start looking out externally for things rather than just almost putting like the horse blinders on, and you're just stay in your own lane and don't look at other stuff, because comparison will make you very tired and drained. And if you're trying to do a project of sorts, that's not up to par.
Yeah. And on that same note, one of the most unkind things you can do is judge you. And here's where we do it most. We judge past choice based on current data. If you knew then what you know now, you clearly would have chosen differently. But in the moment you chose it, even if it was a quote unquote dumb move or whatever, in that moment, you made 100% the correct choice for you in that moment, even if it was exactly opposite of what you were really choosing to create. But we forget that, we made the choice then, it was 100% right. 2 seconds later, we knew we screwed up. But now you're judging that choice based on current data, and we get locked into that. So just be an allowance that every choice you made was perfectly timed for you to now have a different context to choose differently. And if you can look at it like that, we free ourselves up from judging our past based on what we know now.
Yeah, it's a lot of these energy drains are our own. But another thing you can do is eat high energy foods. So I tell people, have something green every day. different foods carry an energy. So as I said when we first came on, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm doing all these things, but I still feel tired. What are you eating? Are you filling your body with food that is not of high vibration? Donuts and cookies and lots of sugar. Don't expect to feel good if you've had sugar. Don't expect to feel good if you've had a steak and potatoes with, like a gratin potato. Like I remember I went to Chicago and the dinner was amazing. Like we had this filet and these potatoes and wine. I felt like crap the next morning. Absolute crap.
Well,
it's just too heavy.
And on that note too, like if I'll use Chipotle as an example, because I do love Chipotle. One bowl from Chipotle will last me at least 5 meals. Because like how much, like if you're really like looking at how much food does my body truly require, you might be surprised at how much less you eat. And if you're fully present while you're eating, like Dr. Dane here in his book, Being You, Changing the World, recommends that for the first 5 bites of your meal, be fully present for that entire experience. And if you can then kind of start extending that a little bit, you'll be amazed at, the amount of food that we eat, how much is really required. And it's a lot less than you think.
Yeah. And I'm not telling anybody to be vegan. I'm not vegan. I'm not vegetarian. but I will tell you from a more medical perspective, digesting meat takes a lot more energy in the body. And I've tested this. I went vegan for like 2 days, just kind of just did clean stuff. I felt much lighter versus, again, the situation of I went to Chicago, beautiful restaurant, had a full meal, and it sits in your stomach. Most of us don't have enough hydrochloric acid to even digest the stuff. So watch the meals that you eat and how you feel the next day. Most people in society here don't even know that because we're so used to eating all these heavy meals, or we don't eat breakfast. I know a lot of patients that come in, well, I don't eat breakfast. I don't really eat till 1 o'clock. And I have a really big lunch and I'm tired. Eat your breakfast, have a smoothie with some kale in it, do something green in the morning or an apple with something, and have a lighter lunch and have a lighter dinner. And really, there's a lot of studies on maybe not even eating past 4 to 4:30 because there's just, it's this prolonged fasting that they're really studying now that really gives the body a break and to digest all those things you've eaten during the day. That helps you to feel lighter and healthier the next day. And I have to say that I agree with that based on some of the experiments I've done.
Definitely. And they talk about metabolism kind of like a fire. Like you keep the fire going by adding logs onto it and it burns up really quickly. But if you don't eat something and that you just have like smolders right now, and then you throw a big meal on it, it might take a long time for it to catch. It's much harder for the body. So even like the smaller amounts of food throughout the day is that's basically what I do. Like I might have a handful of nuts here. I have rolled oats in the morning with some blueberries. I got to find something green. I haven't been doing my avocado as much because my body 3 weeks ago was like, yo, stop the gluten thing. And I'm like, what? No, I like my bread. But I cut out gluten. I feel great. And I don't believe it's going to be a forever thing, but like truly like listening to the body. And I am plant-based, but tomorrow if my body's like, yo, I need a steak, I would ever say, are you sure? It might hurt, but I'm going to honor that and follow my guidance with that. So like really your own synchronicity with your body, the ability to be synced up is so huge, and then follow your knowing and trusting it.
Yeah, when I talk about diets, like this repetitive thing, what I have also found with a lot of vegans that do come to me and, they're tired, or what they do is they end up, they're like, well, what do you think if I have a steak? Or they tell me they did have some red meat and decided to switch up their schedule and have a piece of chicken and have a piece of steak. And I've had people come to me and say, my brain lights up and I have more energy. So when I talk about heavy meals, I talk about our average society that, we're running around with McDonald's in our mouth and, eating on the go. And if you eat a clean diet and every now and then you have a red piece of meat, that's okay. I'm talking more about like the daily heavy meals that we typically have of pastas and chicken, and potatoes and hamburger helper and tuna helper and all these things that we kind of
hamburger helper. Oh,
remember those days? I used to eat that. Oh my gosh, thank God.
Oh, I think hamburger helper was a common thing. Not to mention TV dinners and stuff. It was very
yes. I used to eat those too.
Yeah, instant mashed potatoes. Oh yeah.
I used to think those were like the best things ever. And the little brownie that they put in there, that was the best.
Oh
But
man.
no,
In my
no
drinking
more.
days, I could not get enough of those. They were like $1 a piece, like 10 for 10 at Giant Eagle. And it was like the fried chicken, little thing of mashed potatoes and corn. It was like, in hindsight, I'm like, man, I can't believe how badly I treated my body. And
Yep, I
pot
did the
pock,
same.
all that,
I was like
all that.
eating Burger King. I'd like get Burger King at 10 o'clock before I was going out to the bar when I was like, 21. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not
Oh,
treat my body well at all.
Oh,
So,
bringing alcohol into, for those of you who don't know, I've been sober like over 12 years now. And at the height of my drinking, I was probably drinking like 3 liters of whiskey a week, a gallon of wine. And that's just from home. That's not including going out to the bar like every single day. Like I'm lucky I stayed alive through all that. My body, like bodies are so resilient. Like you look at all the punishment that you can do and how fast it can truly recover if you start listening and actually treating your body with kindness and all that. You can restore so quickly.
we're
And for
miracles.
those,
We are total miracles.
and as a segue, for people who don't know where to start, Dr. K and I on the first and third Monday of every month. This Monday upcoming is the next one. We do this energy clinic. We do it in person. We do it virtually. You can check it out if you feel called. I just posted a link to it in the comments. And next week, Friday, I will be camping and I will probably not be able to do the stream. So I don't know if we'll pre-record something or if we'll just skip next month, but just so everybody knows, we won't be on next week. And there's going to be like, I'm going to be here a week, then I'm gone a week, then I'll be here a week, then I'm gone a week. So there's going to be a couple Fridays that we may miss unless we do some pre-recorded content.
We'll figure that out. But yeah, alcohol is another one, guys, that it's going to make sugar and alcohol. Well, alcohol turns into sugar. Sugar in itself is not bad, but the body just, when you do too much of it and you have a glass of wine every day, don't expect to feel energized the next day. I mean, I don't know. Some people do. Everybody's DNA is different. So I know people that do it, but it's like, I don't know. I don't feel good when I have a bunch of sugar because of all the dieting I've done for the shows. When I eat processed food, or a fried meal somewhere, I know I'm going to pay the price the next day. No matter how positive I am, no matter how many affirmations and energetic tools I do the next day, it's, if I've eaten crappy food, it just, I can process it a little faster with the energy, but I don't feel good the next day. Yeah.
Now, if anybody's a big drinker out there like I was, my go-to thing is I set my alarm for like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had next to me a big glass of salt water, just a little bit of salt because it's a dehydration headache for hangovers. So I would wake up at 4, I would chug this water, go right back to sleep, and I hardly ever, if I ever woke up with a hangover. Now, I'm not encouraging people to do that, like to try that out. But if you are in a space like I was, it might be a contribution to you can actually get to the point where you can stop.
Thanks for the hangover techniques.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was great. Yeah. That and never be sober. Always be drunk enough that you're always like at least and pot and pock all that.
Like that. Yeah. We're not encouraging drinking. But it was fun.
No, but if anybody out there is suffering from addiction, if you message me, what really shifted me was this thing called the Back to Basics, a big book workshop by Paul Fisher. And it is like back when the program of AA first started, before you would even go to your first meeting, you would do these 4 one-hour information sessions, and you would have already done all 12 steps. So you'd be going to your first meeting having done all the work. And what a different space. And now there's people in the program that it's been 3 years and they haven't done a 5th step yet. And so like, if you really want it, Magic Mike's like, call now, please. I'm just looking at the comments. But if you know somebody, or if you yourself have any sort of addictions or anything like that, this workshop, and it's available on YouTube, but I can send you the direct link. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's what brought me to the point where I had the awareness, like, wow, I don't just have an alcohol abuse problem. I have like a major issue, and I really need to look at this. And that was the real starting point for me in doing my inner work, getting rid of all this stuff. And then here I am years later, where I felt like I've done more work in the last 3 weeks than I have in the last 20 years. So there's always ways to fast track and exponentialize how much healing you can have if you're willing to receive it.
Absolutely. And there's other supplements that I use to bring more energy, but a lot of our energy, I have to say, it has to do with 2 things: food and our energetic loops with people, or our own stuff in the head, or the energy depletion we create in our own heads, other people, of energetic vampires, situations, circumstances. I would say a lot of it is energetic.
Yeah. And a lot of it is only made possible because your point of view and judgments. You're either fragmented with all the people around you, or you're fragmented through space-time about future things you are looking to create or past things that you've chosen. And we're all over the place. But what would it be like to bring it all back and for you to be congruent in your body, being, and beyond? What could you create?
Absolutely.
It feels like a good note to end on, eh?
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please invite people to watch this video on all of our videos, subscribe, and help us spread that contagion of consciousness. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
As soon as I find the video, I can't find the video. No, here it is. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us today for the show. Holistic Health and Healing is part of the Emergence of Being Contributor Network. Visit us at emergenceofbeing.com for all of our contributors' content and to learn about our services and upcoming events. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. You can contribute to the show by supporting our efforts and sharing our content with those you care about and those who need it most.